Hello there. This is Mr. D coming to you with my Bible Chronicles of Genesis. This is chapter 37. This is where it gets kind of interesting towards the end of Genesis. We only have, but 3 chapters, and we got 10, and then we go into Exodus. Oh, Exodus is an unbelievably fantastic group of stories. But we're still in the end of Genesis, and Genesis 37 is where Joseph and situations occur. Let's start off. Oh, make sure you mark my subscribe button. That'd be great. Now, let's start off with verse 1, chapter 37. It says here, Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his father, with his brothers. The sons of Bela and the sons of Zepah, his father's wives, and he brought their father bad news reports about them. He's a carrier. He's telling the stories of what's going on with his brothers. I don't know what that is the case of, but I'm sure that it doesn't sound very good. Now, Israel, I remember that's Jacob. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When the brothers saw that their father loved them more than any of them, they they hated him and could not speak a kind word of him. Now, I gathered this word that states something about what Jacob did, and that was right where was it? A robe, ornate robe. I think that's where we've heard stories about Joseph and his many colors in his robes. This must have been the robe that that looked unbelievable, and plus all the work that probably went into it. So he's wearing this robe now. And the brothers, remember, are not saying good things about him. So here comes Joseph. Joseph in verse 5. Joseph had a dream, and we told his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright. That was strange, huh? Upright? While your sheaves you gathered around mine and bowed down to me. I remember the brothers are not too happy with Joseph right now. And this is really not, I'm sure, going over very well with, with the brothers. Okay. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Well, then he had another dream. Oh, let's see what that is all about. And he told his brothers, listen, listen, listen. He said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. Wow. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is it, this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come to bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him. His father kept the matter in mind. So, what is going to happen? Verse 12. Now, his brothers, I'm sure his brothers are not too happy. So, his brothers said to him, no. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, as you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks in Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them. Very well, he replied. So he said to him, go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me. Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the field and asked him, what are you looking for? He replied, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks? They have moved on from here, the man answered. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before they reached them, they plot to kill him. Now, that's really nifty, brothers. But remember, they feel their father loves them more. And that brings a lot of anger sometimes. You know, siblings, you got to try to keep them all close to the heart. Well, these bold brothers surely did not believe that. And so it continues on. Verse 19. Here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him. Let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that the furious animals devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. He was going to try to sneak him in from his brothers, and take him back home where he'd be safe. I don't think Reuben really deeply wanted to do this. So, verse 23. So, when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe. Oh my goodness. That was the robe that his dad gave him. That really precious, beautiful, colorful, unbelievable robe. Oh, that's a bummer. The ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. Then there was no water in it. No water. As they had sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from where? Looks like Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices and balm and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Okay, moving along, merchants, Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover it up with blood? Cover up his blood. Come, let's sell him instead, to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed. So when the Midianites merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he Hold on a second. When Reuben returned to the cistern, he saw Joseph was not there, and how do I keep losing this thing? Oh, and he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped it in the robe in the blood. They took his ornate robe back to their father and said, imagine they were pretty, and this was not a very good thing to tell their father. He found this and examined this and to see whether it was your son's robe. On 33, he recognized it. I think that's Jacob. And he recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his sons many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Mennonites sold Joseph to Egypt, to Potiphar. I think that's how he said. Potiphar, one of the Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guards. Well, Joseph's made it down to Egypt, and it's going to be a new chapter in his life, that's for sure. So, but I wonder what God's going to do with him. Down there as a slave now, gone from his dad's house, to be forgotten, to be lost, to be sold by your brothers. Well, I'm sure God has plans, but we'll find out more about it as we go to the next chapter. So at this time, please don't forget to click my subscribe button so you can make sure that you're aware of my new releases when they come. May God be with you, Mr. D.